you Brother Bill.
Exactly.
So certainly welcome to the Buffalo History Channel. Um, Talk to us first about, let's go to the beginning. How long have you been living in Buffalo?
I was born and raised here. I was born in the front bedroom of 78 Monroe Street on Thanksgiving Day, 1929. My mother was cooking dinner. She said, "Y'all have to excuse me a minute." And then she went and had Brother Bell. I had a midwife, Mother Bonds. I'm the sixth boy born in my family, all by midwives, because I'm the only one born in Buffalo. All my other brothers were born on a farm in Iowa. And that's where we came from originally. Iowa, Midwest.
I remember I was with you when Georgia Burnett interviewed you along with Willard Morse and everybody. You
Right,
talked
right.
about the Weblos and
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was a club that my brother was a member of. I got in the late stage. I was a little younger. I'm the Jim was the third boy born. I'm the sixth boy born. So we were like 4 years apart. And he was a member of the Weblos group, along with some of the other guys in those days. And I was like 16, 17 years old, but my brother Jim was already 21, 22, you know. So, but we always had that Bell relationship. That Bell family thing was strong. All the brothers, we kind of looked out for one another. We worked together because my father always told us the most important thing was the reputation, family. So whenever you go, the name Bell has got to be represented by doing something good and being thought of as a person who was sensitive and concerned about other people. Because he was the deacon of the First Shallow Baptist Church, that was his mantra. And that was kind of instilled in us as we went just growing up. At 78 Monroe, I think I slept with my brother till I was 16 years old. And then my father bought a house that had enough bedroom for all of us to have a single bedroom. It took me about 2, 3 weeks to get used to sleeping alone. Because I was used to a foot in my face, a hand in my, you know, and my brother and I. But hey, we didn't have the room, so and we didn't have much of anything else. My father was working at Bethlehem Steel, and he made sure that all of us, he said, "Look, that's one thing I don't want you to do. That's what? Stay out of Bethlehem Steel." And except for one summer for my brother George, we ended up going into the ministry. He worked there one summer. I think Bill may have worked one summer because my father was in a position to get jobs for people. In fact, he helped King Peterson, who was mayor for a day or two. If you remember, he's on the historic wall. He told King Peterson where to go and how to stay and said, "Look, you'll get the job. Just stay hanging there." So King went out and was in the office, and he kept staying, and he kept staying. And as the day went on, different guys were leaving. And he was left with one other guy. And the man came out and said, "Are you King Peterson?" He said, "Yeah." Mr. Bell said you'd be here. He said, "You got the job." So that was one of the blessings. So my father was a man of great reputation. I never heard him curse. I never saw him drink. I'm serious. He was ideal, and I always wanted to be just like him. I had no heroes. I read a lot of people. I saw a lot of people, but Emmett Bell was my mentor. Period. All the Bell brothers, and you can go around Buffalo for 14 days. You're not gonna find out one bad word about the Bell boys. If they are, it's personal. But we tried to live that kind of life. It's called contributing. That's what we were. It was called Bell Brothers originally because all of us were in the business, but it narrowed down to the place where Jim and I were the only two that seemed to be serious when it come time to do business. So he had experience working for Sam the tailor, and it was a favorite presser. And when people would come in all the time, they'd say they want Jim Bell to press their clothes because they knew his touch was on it. And we sat down and said, "Well, hell, if you can make money work for somebody else, and they want you, we can make money for ourselves." So we went into Bell Brothers Cleaners at one something on William Street, and it expanded to Jefferson. And then what happened was, as we grew into the business, Jim was the major partner. He's the one that really kind of, it was his craftsmanship and all. I was like the guy that ran the pickup routes and the drivers and took care of personnel stuff. That was my stick. And so as we went on, but what happens as you get older uh, is younger boys have a tough time with older brothers. Because if you got anybody older than you, when you got an idea, you're going to have to clear it twice. Because they think that, well, they used to watch you when mother and them went shopping. So what could you know? Very friendly. I took over the building. He owned both places. I took over the one on Fillmore. He kept the one on Jefferson and rebuilt it and all. And of course, man, probably one of the biggest well-run operations in the cleaning business that you'll ever find. In fact, we consider it a compliment to be told that we're running our business like real professional business people. You know, when you come for your clothes, they were ready. We were ready, and they were to be worn. If Jim and Brother Cliff would not wear it, you wouldn't get it. And so that became the reputation that developed a good sound business, and it did. Both the businesses were good and sound. And then, like I say, it came to the place where our differences in where we felt we should be doing, what should be going, became more prominent. Then I got into things politically, and it wasn't no knockdown, nothing. It was just that you take this, I'll take that. Bingo, boom, you get this. You're the major partner, so you get more than that. That was understood. And so we just got, and I went on from there. First got elected in 1983.
Talk to us about your political career.
Well, you know what? Well, I first ran in 1950, in the 50s, against Billy Johnson for the 13th Ward as a Republican. And Billy kicked my butt. He had a very strong organization. In fact, in the 13th Ward, Democrats outnumbered Republicans like 20 to 1. I mean, we had about 4,000 or better Democrats and had about 500 and some Republicans in that ward. And I lost by less than 500 votes, having no idea that I could have run as an independent Democrat against Billy Johnson. I would have beaten him. But if you don't know much, you can't do much. That's what I was always, and I didn't. I was just wanted to run because people said, you know, you're pretty good. You look like you might be a good representative. And so I ran and I lost. And then one day in early 83, I was in the backyard planting flowers. And RD came back to me and said, with a bunch of guys, my brother's real tight with RD. He helped pay for what RD's campaign and all. Yeah.
I've heard that
he financed
he was like Arthur E's godfather or something like that.
You got it. And my brother underwrote all of his stuff, paid for it and all. All I had to do was be cool, which was difficult. My brother never bothered him, but he respected my brother enough that when my brother spoke, he was E.F. Hutton. So he would listen. And he was wise to listen. My brother was very intelligent about business and about people. All the Bells got enough experience with people where we were never a stranger. If I walk into a room, if I'm there in 15 minutes, everybody going to know me and who I am. Because we don't sit in the corner like a wallflower. We go out, maybe too much mouth sometime, but they know we're there. And we try to be careful what we say.
So it would be fair to say that Jim was one of Buffalo's premier power brokers, basically.
Well, I would say that, let's just say this. He was respected by enough people that when he listened to or made advice, he was listened to and followed. And he was close to Art, and Art would listen to him. And other people who were working with and under Art knew that he was like, you gonna do if you're around me. If you don't do, you won't be around me. And that's what probably made him. He was very busy and very much involved. Art has always been. You know, he just don't let stuff go. He follows it up, which is, I found out, is what you must do if you're running for any political office. You just don't get endorsed and say, well, I'm endorsed now. I think I'll go home and sit down. So he did. And they incidentally, that day in 83, they had a candidate that was running for office, but was disqualified because of an incident that happened with him legally. So he could not run. And they were getting pushed to where it was time to file your petitions for someone to run. I had lost twice already to Billy Johnson. I was in my backyard, this same backyard, planting flowers. And they came by to see me and said, you know, will you run? We want you to run. And man, you know, we'll back in. But he talked all that jive. So I said, well, I can't tell you. I got to go see my wife. Because she'd been with me for the first two. And I told her after I lost the second time, I'm not running anymore. Politics don't seem to be my stick. And I said, baby, they're asking me to run. She said, why don't you just go on and run? You know you want to run. Why don't you just go on and run? I run, and I won 3 times in a row. Sometime from the 4th time, I said, I've had enough of this frustration. I was just enough of a businessman to want to see some of the representation I have run like a business. but I couldn't get people to agree.
What was the position you ran for?
Councilman at large from the beginning. That, which is another pretty serious undertaking, because when you're running at large, you're running like the mayor runs, which means that you got to have some kind of representation in all of the 9 districts. And I was independent, but I had connections in all of the districts. And I wasn't endorsed. I ran and was elected in the primary, and then in the general election. Amazingly enough, my life has been really something. I lost the election and was said I lost. It was on the front page and everything else. And we had Jimmy McLeod to freeze the machines, to put an injunction against the machines in our count. So I took my crew and went to the warehouse where they had all these machines. In those days, they had numbers and stuff on the machines. It was a lot less technical and modernized. So you had to open up the back and check each machine. And my folks found enough votes for me to go from 4th to 2nd, because one of the first machines they opened up had 100 votes more for me than had been recorded. And they ended up finding almost 2,000 votes. And they said, Bell wins in recount. That happened again on my 3rd run. They said that I'd lost, and they said that the girl had beat me and was on the front page. And I got the same thing. Oh, well, let's do a recount, because some of the people in the council said, I think you should get a recount because there's something going on that we're here, because they were hearing stuff that I wasn't hearing. So I did a recount and won. So the 2 times out of the 3 times I ran for councilman at large, they had recounts, and New York State court had to declare me the winner, both times. So the 4th time they asked me, was I going to run? I said, they said, you run, you'll be the majority leader. You about said, I'm not used to having to go through all the stuff you have to go through to try to get somebody to do something. Then you owe them, then you got to pay them back, then you got to vote on something you really don't want to vote. Not once did I take anything or misuse or abuse any. In fact, that's been my life. I can go anywhere and do anything because I don't have to worry about my background, because it's cool. And that makes a lot of difference to people. Whatever they do, they want to do, that's fine. But they want somebody that represents them to be solid, that they feel I can trust and believe in them because they're okay. And they judge that by what they see and hear. So, if you don't think your reputation will beat you out there, people know Doug. The Doug don't know. They've been watching you and hearing from you and talking about you. So that was how I got into politics. I loved it because, originally, you may not notice, I was vice chairman of the Erie County Democratic Party when Joe Krangle was the chairman. Because all before my time, the positions was sergeant at arms of the Democratic Party. I told them no. They said, what you want? I said, I want to be chairman. I said, well, you can't be chairman. How about vice chairman? That's close. So I was one of 3 vice chairmen, but I was black, and I was chairman of the Black Zone Leaders Association, which I put together. All the people that represented districts in the black community, all the old timers that you know about, I was the overseer and kind of led them and kind of helped them to put things together, so that after I got in charge of that, everybody that ran for political office had to come and talk to us to get their vote. Before that, you got something, Joe Krangle would be the one that would agree that we was going to support him. And we just say, okay, and go out there. I said, no. They got to come and talk to us. So we would meet at Sister Johnson's house, and they'd come and they'd make their appeal to us, and we would let them know nothing before they left. We say, okay, we'll give it some. And they didn't like that because Joe Krangle wanted to be able to say, I got you, don't worry about it, you got the endorsement, without saying anything to us, black folk. I said, no. That's not going to happen like that. All people, if you're running for an office for the city or any place else, you got to come and see us.
Let me ask this question. Like, during that time, I can remember as a kid, I mean, in politics, the names I knew was yours, and Dave Collins, James Pitts, George K. Arthur, Blackwell, Archie Amos. What was your relationship with your colleagues and colleagues in government?
Great. George Arthur is my daughter's godfather. When he was a teenager, before he started working for the express company as a driver before he started running. He was the lookout on the truck when I was picking clothes up from door to door and going into the projects. He would watch the truck so nobody get into the truck while I was going delivering clothes.
Wow.
Archie Amos House close to you may not know this too. Sam Green was one of my drivers that I told him you need to go on and get the UB and get your law degree. Did you know that? Bob Coles, I initiated into the Scouts. When I went to Scout Haven, he was in my pack. I initiated him in the Flaming Arrows. I was the patrol leader. And I initiated him on his original day out to Scout Haven in Arcade, New York.
Okay.
So you see, I've been around. And I know.
How was your relationship with Collins and Pitt?
Great, great. What I found out is you just have to watch people and pay attention to what they're saying and doing. But that was true of all elected officials because you don't know what somebody has going personally unless they talk to you. And some people would come to me and say, do you have a problem with this resolution or whatever? And I say, no, I don't care. Well, what's the deal? Well, I'd like to get it for him because blah, blah. That's fine. But you got to make sure you got the votes. I always made sure I had these 2 or 3 votes more than I needed. So if somebody come to me an hour before the meeting and said, hey, man, I can't go with that. Something just happened. I say, fine. It's all right. Roll call. Passed.
Okay.
Great relationship. Mickey Howard. He was the chairman of that committee. And I was a member and some other members of it. And they made the request from the Old Committee to name that park Martin Luther King Park. And it was with their cooperation that we won the first public-private partnerships to fund Martin Luther King Park. And if you read what I've given you, and I'm going to give you something else to read on how the selection that all was made, that was a very delicate process. We met for months, and we picked from around the country 3 people who had the knowledge and experience to erect a statue of this size. That statue is 8 feet high and weighs 2 tons and was put together at 9 pieces and made into one. And we ended up picking John Wilson because John Wilson not only had a reputation or a record of doing statues, but he's the one that said to us, and all that he's done, he was trained in Europe and all other places foremost. And he said that he is familiar with the Olmec heads of Mexico. And the Olmec heads were celebrated by them putting the image of a previous leader or whatever, and it was always mounted on the ground in a particular area and praised and worshipped after that. He said in all his studies and all his works and seeing all these statues, he never saw a black statue of anyone that was prominent. And he thought that to put one together that was in the image of black man, which was Martin's whole thing was about advancing the African American race, but he was all about people getting arrested. He was about all people. And so that committee that selected the statue finally, B.W. Smith and I got all members of that committee that made that selection process. And they knew it was never supposed to look exactly like King from its inception. And that was announced. It's been printed. I'm gonna give you a book that shows you all that stuff. And it was said from the beginning, this is a black image, and he want people to look at it and see the power of black man and the strength it exudes by just seeing this image. If you go out and you sit in front of that and just look straight on into that and just kind of concentrate, you can see the uplifting. You said because Martin was never a man that was looking for any kind of glory and fame. So having someone to look exactly like him was one thing, but having something that people could identify him as being a forceful black man was very, very important. And that's where, and 3 people were giving stipends to put together a sample of the work they wanted to do so they could come to Buffalo, scope out the park, pick whatever it is they want to do, and present that to a committee. And this committee unanimously selected John Wilson. It cost us over $250,000 to put that statue out there. Colonel Craven Givens, who's the chairman of the fund, my ace buddy who passed away, known him for 80 years. We was in Sunday school together. He's a retired Air Force colonel that trained people in. He was like superior dude, man. I mean, it was magnificent. You know, we had people from 4 or 5 different countries. We had ambassadors. We had representatives. I got a list of all those people that were there. Oh, at least 3 or 4 of them. And we had the president of Morehouse College. We had over a couple thousand people. We marched from the Science Museum over to the statue, and Colonel Givens took off the sheet that covered the statue. And the announcement before it was uncovered was spoken to by John Wilson, who said, "What I've got does not look exactly like King. It was never my intention to make it look like King." And people all heard that. And yet BW wrote that the most important thing was to have something that represented him so that people could go and say, black man, powerful black dude was Martin Luther King. Of course, everything is on there. Part of the Ever I Had a Dream speech is underneath his statue. There's excerpts from his speeches in the ground. Those are all going to be redone, resurfaced. We could be new lighting, new signage. We've been working on that stuff. We're in partnership now with Homestead on that park. There's nothing happening in that park. We don't have something to say. I just had an hour-and-a-half meeting with Jennifer Jones, who's the head of Juneteenth. And we're making sure that everything is in good shape, even in the midst of modernizations, that it doesn't interfere with them and the Pine Grove Union having access to a park that doesn't have a lot of equipment and stuff with lights going in and all that stuff. So we're working on that. We've pretty much got that, I think, in good shape.
Talk to us about the effort to start an African American museum in Buffalo.
Well, the idea from the beginning was to have one. We started out this like in 2008 or so. And we had a committee that was meeting with consistently, but we felt from the beginning, in order to do justice to anything, we needed to make put 2 or 3 exhibits together that could be transported to places to be shown or to put on show. We knew that trying to buy a museum, funding it, wouldn't be the problem. Maintaining its operation and getting all the people you need to have professionally to put a museum, we knew we couldn't afford to do that. Now, subsequently, we have put a design together that underwrites the whole piece, and that information is now in the hands of the corridor, the Michigan Street Heritage Corridor Group is aware of that. You know, the Alfred it knows about that, so that I think a part of the $30 million they just got is going to be used to put a museum together. And of course, we'd hope that we could get to share a part of that museum, because we have a couple of displays and we're working on some more about black elected officials that got elected in any office, all black Americans, starting way back to in the days in the 30s when we didn't have too many black elected officials, but we had the one, I can't think of his name, was an undertaker, Sherman Walker.
Sherman Walker. Talk to us about Sherman L. Walker.
Sherman L. Walker was somebody special. He was the chairman of the 5th Ward. You know, back in Sherman Walker's day, there was 54 members of the county legislature. Each one of those people represented some little township, a little village or something. And he was the only African American on there. And amazingly enough, he was very close to Amagon, the daddy, because when I saw the daddy, when he was still able to speak cool and all, he told me about Sherman Walker and having had some kind of relationship. And Sherman Walker was active as an undertaker during my days when I was at First Shiloh Baptist Church. And he got all the community bodies, all the county people that died, or either those that did not couldn't be funded or weren't funded or whatnot. He got those. And his place was on the corner of Hickory and Clinton Street. That's where it was okay. And he was the supervisor of 5th Ward, and Leland Jones knocked him out. I was on Leland Jones' committee. We had a football team. In those days, Brother Bell Brothers had sponsored football teams, basketball, and different stuff over the years. And we all got in the street because Leland Jones impressed us. Leland Jones come out of the University of Buffalo. He was head of the class. He's quite a football player. His son came behind him. He was a doctor now, and he was on the football team. And what Leland Jones used to take different people with different skills to programs at the University of Buffalo to display our skills. I was selected to go twice to give an exhibit in acrobatics. I used to do all them backflips and front flips and all that stuff people do. And Papa was a dancer, other people musician, and he would feature us to let people know that there were skills and all that we had. And he was still a senior, like a senior at UB. So that's what we did. And that was my experience there. And that's what got him. And then we went on from there. He got elected as a councilman of the Ellicott district. He was a football player, an outstanding, fluent dude. Leland Jones was special. And his father was an undertaker. And his uncle was Warner Jones, who was one of the foremost undertakers in this whole section of the country, because he had a degree in dermatology. And anytime somebody was in an accident, whose face and all was destroyed and all that, you get him a picture and he reconstructs it for you so it can be shown. And white folks used to come to him for that treatment. He lived at 417 Jefferson Street. We lived at 422, right across the street. And on the other side of us at 426 was Herbie Jones, the famous optometrist who taught at the University of Buffalo. And he had a business with another, you saw nobody of color going in there and get their eyes checked. You saw folks of another colors that were going to him because he was foremost. Herbie Jones. Oh, that was my baby. Well, oh, are you kidding? I went there, and along with thousands of others, it was the most magnificent mentoring place in the history of Buffalo. It played a far more important role than the Nash House or Michigan Street Baptist Church because of the number of people it affected. There was hardly anybody that you would know or imagine all during that period of time that didn't have some kind of relationship with the Michigan Avenue YMCA. It was built to us because in those days we could not go to the regular YMCA. It's what's amazing. YMCA stands for Young Men's Christian Association, but they weren't Christian because they had to build 2 or 3 black Ys to accommodate black people. Michigan Avenue Y was one of them, and of course their architect was a black guy, and he was the first black architect in the city of Buffalo. Michigan Avenue YMCA was one that we had picked because of its influence and effect it had on the general community. Everybody that was doing anything in any church. See, there was no other place large enough to have as many people in it at one time and serve them. And I got a whole book in there on the Michigan Avenue YMCA. It was also built to house traveling road people. It had rooms upstairs for men only, but if they were on the road traveling back and forth to Buffalo or coming in here for a visit, there would be a place that it wouldn't cost them a lot of money where they could stay overnight, couple days, 3 days, or whatever. And also had activity. We had a camp that kids went to, and they had all kinds of activities, swimming and a great gym where they had competition. I played on the YMCA basketball team. I think we won about 80 games before we lost any time to anybody. So I played basketball too, and football. And so it was just a great place to go. And a lot of people that were there that appeared there are historical people like W.E.B. Du Bois and all those inventors and all of those era of the 40s and the 50s and 60s. Oh, because it was built in 1927. It was raised in 1977. So for 50 years, and I mean, it was effective. I mean, if you wanted to know about medicine, history, I don't care what the subject was. We had Jim Brown came for a visit when he was in his heyday, running over top of people. We got all those pictures. We made up a beautiful YMCA display from the time it was founded and constructed until it was used. And the pictures of a lot of people that are in there are people that went on to be doctors, lawyers, judges, physicians, you name it. Prominent folk. If you look at some of them pictures, you say, what? You know, amazing, amazing. All of them went there, and they were always historical because they had mother and women's clubs. They had father-mother organizations. They had all the frats and whatnot and sororities had some kind of relationship with the Y because they would meet there and talk about their goals and objectives. And the YMCA was a preparation area for developing character, responsibility, sensitivity, things that that were instructed in it, that were accepted by these kids because the environment was such that you had to comply with this kind of relationship if you wanted to come there. And the ministers would all meet. They had a committee. W.L. Scruggs was the first black doctor or black to be a member of the National YMCA committee. They didn't have any blacks on there at all until Dr. Scruggs. And Dr. Scruggs was our family doctor. He lived right there on Humboldt. And he would come to your house. My mother got sick and my father got sick at home. He come in there with his bag, man. You can't even see a doctor in the hospital no more. You mind coming to your house to visit you? You know how long ago that was.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about you won many awards. Any awards that like are the most meaningful? They're all meaningful, but any of that?
No, my awards started coming to me, 56, 70 years ago now. Because my first awards I got before I was 30 years old. And most of them, a lot of them came because of the work I was doing with Martin Luther King, to tell you the truth. Because when I was representing King, after I got to doing it, every year I would have a different program with a different theme, with people that had to audition to get on it. If you look at any of our old programs, and we got a lot of filmage of those too. I mean, we didn't do a half step. Everybody wanted to come see our programs because it wasn't political, it wasn't over religious, even though it was a learning experience. We would tell you something about King you didn't know. So when you left our program, and I appreciated all of them because all of them were ones that were given to me for my perpetuation of King and Black history and involvement, because we'd have a lot of people, like Cecily Tyson and Eartha Kitt, and all the people came and appeared on our programs. And we loved them, and people, we had standing room only crowds at Shays Buffalo, man. And if it's 6 o'clock came, that program would start. At 8:30, that program was over. The buses and streetcars would be waiting at the door when it was over. And then we would feature the people who sponsored the program for the following month on cable TV. Most wonderful thing I've ever been able to do is to keep people from making mistakes, spending all their money on something they know nothing about, and just kind of assisting them with a plan that made their dreams possible if they follow the plan, if they're able to follow the plan. So that's been an experience. And the lady that gave me into that was Sue McCartney, who I consider like a sister. I've never met anybody that I could have been respected anymore, that we had a great relationship. And they wanted me to stay there till I was 90. When I left there in June of 19, that November, I turned 90. I went out there to visit. I was out there for almost 25 years. I ran programs that called Minding Your Business, where we did taping of people we helped, and we would show that on television. And then I did 25 years with what is it? Small Business Administration, SBA. So my guy, he just called me a week ago, Shortino. He's been running that for years. He calls me every once in a while. Brother Bell. They're having on the 18th of June. They're having their big Straight Talk. I did Straight Talk for 20. I'm one of the original members of Straight Talk. I've been received 2 Directors Awards from Straight Talk for my relationship and suggestions and programming. I've got them from every place. I don't even know where I got them from. I'm telling you, I've got over 100 and some of them, man. All I know is I keep getting them. And I thank you. I just got the Red Jacket Award. And that is for someone who perpetuates history like I have done with the Black relationship thing. And I was picked and given that award. And the guy I'm named after was a strong Indian leader who did everything he could to keep his people from getting caught up in religion and Jesus. Just like they had their own traditions, they had their own blessings, they had their own everything. And the white folks went in there and changed everything. And he fought it. He was respected and he was intelligent. But they did a number on him. And finally, he succumbed to some of that pressure because they got inside the heads of a lot of his followers. And they just kind of said, made it heavy for him. Go your wata. And his big statue's right in the front of Fourth Line. That's who I got the award after. And I read his stuff. You know what I said the night I received the award? I said, this is for the most famous Indian who ever lived. I said, I don't see any Indians here. I didn't make me the most popular person in the world, but I told him, you got to get some Indians in here. How can you give an award away in the name of most prominent Indians? And you got Indians living all around here. The tribe he led is one of the most prominent Indian tribes, the Senecas. You got Seneca, they got gambling places and everything. And you don't have anybody.
Right.
And you're a history museum? So I'm working on that now, believe it or not. So you may see some Indians at the next one. I have a certain skill that I write poetry. It's rhythmic, and it isn't forever. It reaches a point, and I think it's affecting. And I've written it in a personal nature. So when anyone reads my book, I want them to put their place temporarily in my shoes. Think about something in their life that they read in this book that they can remember had an effect on them at a certain time in their life. And I've written for every potential occasion. I've written for every day of the week, and you can just look at it when I get through. You see what I'm talking about. I can refer you to any one of them, and I can almost tell you that at least half of the ones you pick I can quote for you from memory, just because I wrote them, and it's something about, I just had that little touch that I can remember stuff like that. It's just a gift. I have no idea where it came from. My father had good memory, though. Like I tell you, on the Bible, yeah, you know, you read a scripture and say, yeah, Matthew 2, I say, whoa, Daddy, slow down. But yeah, all of the awards I got, I've appreciated. There's none that have any special significance.
All right. So is there anything else that you'd like to?
Except to say I appreciate the fact that you're doing this. I just wish I had kept some of the things that, and information, it's just too difficult for me to compound it now because it's so extensive. But the main thing I wanted people to know that I've been busy all my life. And it was always trying to do something to clarify something, to help somebody, sustain somebody, to assist. And so I've always been around. A lot of people just call me just to talk to me. I've never been too busy to do that. I find out lately I have to say no more because they all want me to serve on committees and be on boards and stuff. And you know, I paid my dues. I'm at my age, I just want to cool. I am still very busy now. I'm still working on this museum, and hopefully it'll be built for me to roll up there in a wheelchair and cut the ribbon, and somebody have to squeeze my hand maybe. But at least if I can just remember that to say thank you and that I'm a part of it.